Good morning, IED students. So this is your last project. This is a bit of a challenge, and your goal is to assemble the entire Automoblox truck. So one thing that you don't have is you don't have the physical truck at your disposal, but you do have all of the individual parts that are posted on Google Classroom. So make sure that you go in and click each part, then choose the download button and import into Onshape. If you're not sure how to do that, go back and watch a couple of weeks ago when we did that with the jack lift assembly parts. Then there's also a PDF of how all of these parts go together, because there's like a 1-block socket and a 2-block socket, and so you definitely want to make sure you get those in the right spots. So check out that PDF. One thing that you'll notice on the PDF is that we actually have a sub-assembly. So we're going to put together individual sub-assemblies, and then in a final assembly file, we're going to bring those 3 sub-assemblies together. So I want to walk you through creating a sub-assembly of sub-assembly number 1. That would be the back part of the truck, the bed, and obviously the axles and the tires and the wheels. So we're going to use mostly fastened mates all over this assembly, but there's going to be one part where we want to make sure that the wheels actually rotate on the axles. That's the one part that we want to have moving. So let's get started. Here in Onshape, I have all my individual parts, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new document. And I'm going to call this truck bed subassembly, because I don't want to just name it subassembly number 1, because I may not know exactly what that is or what that's referencing. So truck bed subassembly. And then, of course, we don't need to do anything in the Part Studio piece, but we do want to go to Assembly 1. And let's go ahead and begin inserting the different parts that we need for this. So there's nothing loaded, so we need to go to Other Documents, and I'm going to choose Created by Me, and since that's most recent, all of these parts show up that I imported. So as listed on the PDF, we do need one of the 1-block sockets. All right, so click on that. It doesn't matter whether you click the one that's named or not. It comes in as part 1 anyway. Okay, so there's our 1-block socket. Obviously, it's got that big rectangular piece there. Okay, then I'm going to choose that arrow, the back arrow, to get back to all of those parts that I've imported. And I'm going to look for the axles. There's the axle. And this time we actually need 2 of these. So I'm just going to load in 1 and then click again on the name to bring in the second one. Use that back arrow. Well, we definitely need the truck bed. So there we go, truck bed. And this one's coming in at a weird angle, but okay. As far as I know, there's really no good way to try to reorient it. So we'll just click and place it. Hit the back button there. We need 2 wheels. Yep, 2 wheels. So 1 wheel loaded. There we go. And a second wheel loaded. And then lastly, we need 2 tires. There we go. All right, and then click the green checkbox. So all of these parts are loaded here in our assembly. And if I start moving a couple of things around in space, I can locate that origin piece. Oftentimes it's super helpful just to get things moved around correctly. So this part, it looks like, ooh, I found out how we can rotate things. Okay, so I do want to rotate this thing, not that way. It's going to be the last arrow I chose. That's the way I want to rotate this thing. There we go. Just to kind of help see it in a slightly different way, so that I can get this thing loaded up onto that origin correctly. So I'm going to choose a fastened mate, and I'm going to just select any point along the bottom. Doesn't matter if it's on the edge, because then I want it to be oriented right side up. There we go. And I'll hit the checkbox. Okay, so everything else is still movable. but the truck bed now is stationary. This is the orientation that I want to see my truck in. All right, next up, these axles, the way that they need to go into the bed is that the ridges, that's what needs to go into the bed. The part that we should see sticking out is the part that has the little clips on the end. That's how the wheels are able to attach to it in the real world version of this truck bed. So I am going to use another fastened mate. I'm going to try to get on this surface and click there on the center. And then on this particular location, I want to stay on the outside surface. There we go. And click there. Now this came in the opposite way, so I do want to go through and flip the primary axis and then click the checkbox. So what I should be able to see on the outside is that ridge as well as the clip end. So that looks really good. Let's try to do that again on the other axle. Get on this surface so that it's lining up the center. The right click button is what lets me rotate this around, or you can use the view cube. And once again, I want to stay on the outer surface, click there. And this one came in the correct way, so I don't have to flip it, and click the checkbox. So once again, it came in so that I can see that ridge as well as the clip piece. All right. So far, so good. Next up, we'd want to put on those wheels, and this one is not oriented correctly, so you could go through, left click on it, and then work on rotating it around so that you can see it the correct way, if you wish. You don't have to. But we, of course, want that rim side to be on the outside of the truck bed. So let's go through and figure out how we're going to get this to line up. So this is going to be not a fastened mate. We want this to rotate. So we want to choose the revolute mate, because what it's going to do is just allow it to rotate about one axis only. There's going to be no moving or sliding. So we want the revolute mate, and then we do need to fasten this thing together. So I'm going to choose this very end and this same surface here. There we go. And this one needs to get flipped, and then we'll click the checkbox. So we can see it sticking out a little ways from the bed. That's what we want. We don't want any additional issues or interference. And then if we move this, we can see that it really does rotate. The axle stays put, but the wheel rotates. Okay, so your job would be to finish up the other side, putting on the wheel. I'm running out of time on my video for how long this can record for. So let's go ahead and put the tire tread on this wheel. So it doesn't matter which way this thing faces, if the little Automoblox shapes face the bed or face away from the bed. If you want them to all be the same, you can make sure that they're all the same. But for this one, it's a little strange because it's just a different surface, but we want it to sit right on there. So I think I'm going to use a fastened mate, and I'm going to use the edge surface, and select that, and try to get this lined up with the interior surface there. We'll see if that looks the way that I want. It seems like it's maybe offset incorrectly, so I'm going to hit the X button. I'm going to cancel that, and I'm going to retry this. So what I believe needs to happen is, similarly, I want that outer edge, and then here I also want the outer edge instead. So now when I rotate it and look around, now it's lined up properly on the wheel. And so I'm going to click the checkbox, and it looks exactly how I intended. Nice and flush. Nice and flush. Okay. So next up is this one block socket. So for some reason on the parts that got created, the one block socket is not quite as deep as the hole in the bed of the truck. So you may find this on the other parts as well, that we need to create some offsets. Okay, so let's go ahead and use that fastened mate. Rotate this around to get just the center of that back piece. And then we'll attach it to the center of the back of that hole, the cavity. So as you can see, there's just this little edge, and on the physical truck, that edge is not there. So we're gonna go ahead and choose the offset option here, and the axis that we're needing to work through is the z-axis, because the z-axis is the one that's going backward and forward. So on the z-axis, I'm gonna change that to be 0.1 and press enter. Okay, that went the wrong way, so this needs to be a negative 0.1, and I'll press enter. And then you can see that it's sticking out just to the edge. It looks just a little more flush with what's going on. Okay, so then I'm gonna go ahead and click the checkbox. And like I said, make sure to put on the wheel and the tire on the other side. And you've got your first subassembly completed. You would definitely want to name it. Subassembly 1 or subassembly truck bed. Obviously, that's what our file is called, but never hurts to have this going as well. At the same time, you might want to create a bill of materials, just like we did before. Adjusting the names, or the descriptions rather, since we can't change the names, based on which part is which. So maybe try that out. And don't forget, create all the subassemblies, then create a final assembly. Once you have a final assembly, then make sure you have a full bill of materials finished up. Place that in a drawing file, create an exploded view, and be sure to include the parts list as well as the balloons for the exploded view. And I'll give you some tips on that in another video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.